So I'm going to call the August 9th, 2022 meeting of the Ayer Planning Board into session. First order of business is the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Do I have a
Seconded.
second discussion on the agenda? I'm just going to make a brief comment that we hope to wrap things up in a relatively decent hour tonight, given the heat and the exhaustion that many people are experiencing. We do have some serious business to consider. Alan has a brief presentation for us. And I do believe that with Stratton Hill, there are some things we can talk about tonight, including the RFP for the traffic study and some issues around the waivers. With that said, I would like to call a vote. All in favor of approving the agenda?
Yes.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's unanimous. The agenda is approved. There are no covenant and bond releases, and that gives the floor to Alan, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. And
Good evening, Alan.
to all of you through you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. For the record, my name is Alan Menoy, and I'm the director of the Ayer Office of Community and Economic Development. And I requested placement on your agenda this evening with regard to the West Ayer Village form-based code. We worked together. We all worked together in actually formulating, both the West Ayer Village form-based code, just out of West Main Street, as we know, as well as the downtown Ayer form-based code. So I know you folks have real familiarity with the code and what it was all about, and how both codes were adopted unanimously at town meeting a few years ago.
Excuse me.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
We're
Yes.
missing the copies of
Yeah,
that
I'm
document that outlines the things that you want, Alan. That's this thing,
Oh.
this thing.
Oh, did you want me to make copies for everybody? I'm sorry.
Oh.
I made. I didn't know.
I
I'm sorry.
Could you run that on? So
Okay.
Mark will
I'm
make
sorry,
copies.
Mark, I
Keep going.
misunderstood.
You can keep going.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just give us a quick background. And I don't have any visual presentation tonight. I won't put you through that
We all
torture.
kind of keep looking up there.
Thank you. It's like he always,
I know.
because
Okay.
I won't go that way, but maybe if I come back for a second,
It's
go
okay.
around and we can go there. So the form-based code out in the West Ayer Village. Of course, we were awarded the $3.1 million MassWorks grant. You see that infrastructure work going out there right now, transformative. So it was, that grant to transform the whole physical infrastructure, in combination with the new zoning, the form-based code. We did all this together. We worked for many years, 4 years together, to go to transform that corridor, which had been, talked about and proposed for master plans going back 40 years. Well, we've broken through. Thank you, sir. It's all going well out there. However, the infrastructure is going well, the zoning has been adopted. I have been approached over the past year, even a little more than a year, by no less than 12 private sector developers. The project's been out there, they see what's going on. Most of them contacted my office. We would go out and meet with them on the corridor, part of my job and duties, and I've gone out over the past year, and I'd say no less than 12 private sector developers, and this is independently, each of them going out there. And we talk about, okay, the infrastructure is being delivered, we amended the zoning, all this so we can see some really high quality, first-rate, mixed-use, sustainable development happen out there.
And excuse me, Alan,
Please, yes.
just to remind everybody, I believe that area is also one of for the town's objectives in the master plan and in general land use, one of the most desirable areas for encouraging development. Is that correct?
It is. It's because of, very importantly, it's a gateway to our town, it's the West Gate, and because of its proximity to the Devon's enterprise, and everything that is happening out there that is critically linked to the future of this town and has been for 80 years and will continue to do so. That's why we work closely with Mass Development in getting that grant and with our partners at Devon's Enterprise. So it's really a big picture project to deliver, what can happen out there, again, in terms of mixed-use development. So, all the developers I met, they said, very good, we've gone through the code, they like the code is what really, it did what it was designed to do, to attract them to take a new look, a different look, because all of them said, frankly, before you did all this, we never would have even looked at anything out there. That's why, folks, we know the state it's in with a lot of, one-story buildings, really low quality stuff, not kept. And most of these developers said, if you hadn't done all this in the town meeting hadn't done, we wouldn't even have looked at this. We would have looked at other things in other towns and cities. Very good. You've captured our attention. We see great opportunity here. We'd like to deliver what you prescribed in that form-based code, the place you're saying you want to see this become. So I said, very good. But they get into it, said, okay, very good. We'd like to invest here and transform. However, we see here on your form-based code, item 1 that they all brought up independently, and again, this is over the course of a year. I see your building height maximum out there is 3 stories. I said, yes, this is what was adopted at our first, go with the, okay. A minimum of 2. We don't want to see 1-story buildings out there. That's a waste of land and not delivering what we need for our town. So they said, very good, but I said, Mr. Minoyan, 3 stories. And by the way, your code requires and prescribes the first story of first level, the side of any buildings we build out here, must be commercial. They cannot be residential. I said, that's correct, because that creates the sidewalk vitality in life, and we need more places for our small local business people to do enterprise. We need more storefronts in our town. So I said, yeah, okay. So if we do residential then, you're saying it can just be the 2nd story and 3rd story. So it's basically 2 stories of residential. Yes.
Are there reasons why they just can't expand horizontally?
Yes, and you just jumped right into right where I'm going with this, right. They said, Mr. Minoyan, just formulaically, and frankly, as the year progressed, folks, the cost escalations on everything. We're feeling it in a real powerful way with our infrastructure part. You know what? Granite has gone through everything. We're like, oh my goodness. Our budgets are all like, wow. So they said, Mr. Minoyan, just the cost. I said, we understand. It has busted most deals. Forget it. Not feasible any longer. 3 stories, those numbers don't work. And I said, I understand. I've been in the business for a while. And I said, if it were 4 stories as a maximum, we could make those numbers work, go in here, make the massive investment we'd have to do up front, and have a return on our investment a reasonable amount of time. 4 stories is really, frankly, the bottom threshold. They're saying, frankly, all formulaic things we're doing now with our architecture firms and the building and construction companies out there, they're really saying it's 5 stories. That really makes everything work now. And I said, no, that's not. 4 stories, Mr. Minoyan, we would buy out there, and we will build, and we're ready to go. But 3 stories, it's really a deal breaker. Now, Jonathan, Mr. Chairman, as you just said, as I look at the code now, and I authored that code, we did it together, here was my failure. Looking out there at West Main Street in this corridor, we looked at it. I did not fully appreciate and factor in when you look at the south side of West Main Street, the Devon side, if you will, of out there, immediately behind all these parcels that line that side of the road. The same side of the road like the Devon's Plaza is on, the animal, the veterinary hospital, all those. Immediately behind it is the extreme slope of Shepley Hill. We thought, well, the lots aren't deep, but we thought, well, maybe they go. There is nowhere to. There's no depth again to those lots. This we know we deal with in many corridors in here. We're either constrained by railroad tracks, by water, and we just don't have deep lots in air. So they said, and all of us know, if you're going to do density, and that's what they're trying to deliver, and it's what we want to see through the code, if you can't spread out horizontally to get the room, there is only one way to go, as we know, and it's vertically. So, all of these, and what strikes me and what struck me the most was all of these folks said the same thing to me independently of each other. I met with these folks and it was like, oh my goodness. So what it's saying is the industry is saying you have something separate, but at 3-story maximums, we'll look elsewhere and we'll develop elsewhere. I said, okay, we need to look at this. Then also, by the way, on the north side, the other side of the street, I kept thinking, boy, well, there's depth there. We do it. I didn't fully appreciate the floodplain. And there is a it's floodplain back there. Well, so you can't go deep on that side either. Now the great part is the code we did. The old zoning, you had to set the buildings back 35 feet from the road. Now with our new code, we said, guys, you can build the buildings right up to the sidewalk line, just like downtown, which we love. Great, we love this, Mr. Moore, let's go. So the first request, and I'm here tonight to have the dialogue with you all, I believe the thing to do to deliver now what we've worked for 4 years and everything town meeting did, we all did, all the tours I conducted with the citizens and residents of town, everybody, Alan, make it happen. It's ready to happen, wants to happen, but we're probably, what's going to be necessary is amending the West Air Village form-based code to allow a maximum to go from 3 stories to 4 stories. Now we have 4-story zoning in our downtown with our form-based codes, but just around the commuter rail station on the T6. And this is what we want to do. And when you get into it saying, oh my God, is this going to be complicated, you know, with the warrant and taking it, what it basically is what we would submit at town warrant is changing the numeral 3 to the numeral 4 for that. And that is section, I'm sorry, and I should have referenced it up front. It's actually, and I didn't go sequentially here, it's section 10.5.15 under building form, principal building. Current building maximum 3 stories, proposed amended maximum 4 stories. So that's the first one. The second one, and again, my failure as the author of the code, lot widths. You know, we were out there in West Air Village, and I'm very much wired and geared towards sort of recreating traditional New England downtown centers. And, you know, I went out there and I thought, well, let's kind of treat this like it's a New England downtown. And if you look at our downtown, any downtowns, you'll notice the building lots are actually quite narrow. You don't have, with the exception that you see like the Page block, the Moore building, which almost spans the entire block. We have some like that as well. We went out there in West Air Village, we said, let's do this to try to sort of make it so we don't have very, very long lots that would result in very long monolithic buildings, which we don't want to see. I had a maximum here of 260 linear feet for a maximum lot frontage. What we're realizing out there, and this is what the developers are saying, Mr. Benoit, we want to develop out there, and this would have helped if I went visual with this. If you look at the lot configurations out there, there are a lot of pretty small, narrow lots broken up into small things. Say, Mr. Benoit, we're prepared to do this, but we're going to have to like buy a couple lots and assemble them together. Because again, we can't go back deep, we gotta sort of get that up front. And I said, okay. The maximum length I have here, we adopted of 260 linear feet, is not sufficient to be able to assemble some of the parcels there and make it work. So I went out, I reformulated, calculated, and we're proposing to go from 260 linear feet as a maximum for those lots to 384 linear feet. We want to keep it below 400 feet. 400 linear feet, if you go and measure any traditional New England downtown, the standard block length of a block in a traditional New England downtown is about 400 feet. Believe it or not, you go everywhere, it's like, my God, and I was everywhere, how does that happen? So I'm saying we're going to keep that under 400 linear feet, the 384. And that would be both, you know, in the in both transects. We'll just have a uniform 384 maximum linear feet for those lots. That then provides them saying, yes, I can buy these two lots, put them together. I'll say though, the most important thing, and this is what we should do, where the planning board, it's gonna be, your role will be critical. A few of the developers we've met with, they've actually shown us some conceptual, just how we might do these types of buildings, okay. And we said, here's the deal. If you do a building, right, and we lengthen that lot, and the building, is a large building spanning that lot, you have to architecturally break that building up so that it reads architecture as 3 or 4 buildings, all narrow buildings. You'll never get through the planning board, you'll never get through us. You come saying, this is just gonna be sort of this one linear block massive building that reads as one big. You're gonna architecturally break that up, and there's a cost associated with that, and that's what you're gonna have to do to come to Ayer if you do this. So that'll be, and you have the discretionary authority, through the code when they come in to say, we really want to see you work a little bit harder at the fenestration on that architectural facade. And you can keep sending that back and say, do better, we want to approve this, but do better. And all of them said, that's actually, Mr., what we want to do, because that's the product that sells now. We're not going to build these big monolithic front. It'll be broken up so it reads as separate buildings. Okay, that's very good. So that would be the second one we'd request, bringing to town meeting for amendment. These are actually small numerical things. And by the way, there's nothing unusual about this. When you adopt a whole new zoning code, we all know you're going to be tweaking in a few years because you find little, it's like, look, let's tweak, get back. Especially this, which was so new and innovative, what we did. And the final one is parking. This is section 9.1.2. We did not draft and we did not adopt new parking requirements or standards with either form-based code district. We said, let's just keep our current parking regulations that's in the overall zoning bylaw. Let's see how it works. Although we did amend it for the downtown T6, if you recall at town meeting. We said, folks, we need to go to 1 car, per unit, whatever it is, especially because you're right downtown, you're at the commuter rail station, we have the Devon shuttle. This is what we don't want to create parking lots in our downtowns. We need buildings where people can live. We have a housing crisis in Ayer today, a serious housing crisis. So, same thing out here, and I'll say especially for West Ayer Village. Why? West Ayer Village, as this happens and develops, most of the folks that are going to end up living there and making this their home and their village are going to be folks that are working on Devons. A lot of folks don't know this, but if you're ready for some really intense numbers, right now currently there are 6,000 plus people daily working out on Devons right now. With the completion of the 2 new developments that are happening now up there, which are going to be almost another 1 million square feet plus, the big new Fusion Campus Center, there are going to be 8,000 people working out there every day. They are capped legislatively at 298 residential units they can have out there. The total population of the town of Ayer is a little over 8,000. There are as many people working on a day as the total population of our town. The scale. These folks, what we're doing as part of our infrastructure redevelopment plan out there, we are literally designing and building a bus stop, a public transportation station there. The Devon shuttle will run every day. It'll literally pick these folks up at the front of these proposed buildings and drive them right to the front door of their corporations they work at Devon's. We have bike lane, the best bike lanes that will be designed all as part of the village that will go right. A lot of the folks that are working there will probably will be just, Ellen, it's literally a 5-minute bike ride to my job. Yes. It's 3/4 of a mile distance from our commuter rail station. A 15-minute walk. Or literally a 5-minute bike ride. Folks, the whole point of this is here is Ayer on the vanguard, always leading the way. We're gonna start creating places that are not designed for cars to live in, but for people to live in. This is a truly transit-oriented development district. This is why it's gonna win a state award when we're done with all this and be a model for the Commonwealth and for all New England. So we're gonna propose here, let's amend the parking bylaw for West Air Village form-based code and simply say it's one space required per unit. Now that's the town and municipality saying, that's the minimum. You know, it's fine, you can have one car. Frankly, the private developers, the banks that provide the financing for these, I know, I remember being a commercial banker myself, big project in downtown Nashua. The city of Nashua said, you need the parking minimum was very low. But we, the bank, said, we're giving you the $7 million bill. We want to see more parking in your development. We're protecting our investment. So they may, and say, well, we're going to do more than one. But we're saying in terms of the town, one per unit is fine. And frankly, it reinforces the fact we're not building developments to put thousands or more cars on our streets and roads. With the pollution, we're building these places so that the car is not the focal point of your life for that day, So this is a model. So these are the three proposed amendments. Let's go from 3 stories to 4 stories as a maximum. Let's do the linear feet of that frontage. Let's just take it up to about 380, a little under a block, a standard New England block. And let's just drop the parking requirements. Because like right now, I think it's, 1 space for 1.5 spaces for a 1-bedroom, 2 spaces for a 2-bedroom. Let's just say it's 1 space per unit for everything out there. And you go and let's do a good walkable multimodal village. So these are the 3. I present to all of you, the planning board. I hope to win your support and advocacy. And I'm prepared to go to our Ayer Town meeting in the fall and present it to the people of our town, who have really been very supportive of all this since day one, what we've done with all of this.
Alan,
So
thank
there
you.
we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What I'd like to do is open it up to questions from the board and then open it up to the public. My colleagues, thoughts and questions? Nathan?
I have a few for Alan.
Yes.
Let's see. This can just be also just a yes or no answer, which is any changes also for the downtown form-based code based on these inputs, so that
Thank
we
you.
bundle that together.
Thank you, because it's the same dynamic at work. This one, though, I almost feel like we did it first in the T6 downtown, and all based on, you're right at the commuter rail station, and the Devon shuttle stops that. My sense is West Airville, let's do that as sort of the, this is where it proves that, and because it's so designed, for the folks at Devon's, and it's right, and we know all that transportation infrastructure's there. I feel very confident we got a winner. I don't know if we're ready to do it in the rest of the downtown. I feel comfortable with it, actually.
Let me be a little more specific. Has there been, excuse me.
No, yes.
Has there been?
You're talking about, what part are you talking about in regards downtown? You're just talking about parking for downtown?
No. If we're going to touch form-based code.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I
Yeah,
thought it
that's
was
what
just
I'm
parking.
clarifying
I'm
what
sorry.
you're asking,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, my apologies, I'm
If we're
sorry.
going to touch form-based code
Yes.
and make a few changes
Yes.
in West Air Village,
Yes,
and based on the input from the market,
yes.
should we also make similar changes or have people made similar comments to the downtown form-based code?
No, the developers haven't. They're covered with the problem with what's holding back, and we have 3 prospective folks that want to build buildings that they're ready to do it, and what's holding us there is the parking requirements.
Yeah.
And there's not enough, the downtown lots of, there's not enough on-site parking here. And that's why we're looking at, we have our new parking deck, but was paid for and designed, for commuter parking and not for dedicating those for overnight parking. That's my parking space. I live downtown and that's my space. But we're looking at that with Mart Because the reality is, life did change dramatically after COVID. Folks are not riding the trains like they did. It's been proven out we can work remotely from home and have the same productivity levels. The upper deck of our new parking deck has sat pretty much empty for 2 years. And there are 90 spaces available up there. So we're having discussions now to maybe with Mart saying, is there something we might be able to? So really what's holding it back downtown is not the height, not the lot stuff, because the lots have to be narrow in downtown, because this is our downtown. It's the parking again,
Allow me to follow up then on parking, and this is my
Yeah.
final question.
I'm sorry?
This is my final question.
No, take
on
your
parking.
time.
I agree with that's been my understanding too, is the parking requirement is a burden to development. However, I would ask you, Alan, and the board and the public to give us some more creative ideas than just going to one park, a simple equation, one parking, one unit.
Yes.
Are there other ways to incentivize? Could there be some way that there's parking scales non-linearly with the number of bedrooms, right? So that we encourage
Yes.
more multi-bedroom or a good mix, and not just get one bedroom apartments. Could we scale, or could we have some kind of a bond? I don't know. Could there be a trade that the developer partners and helps with our public transit infrastructure? Because you go down to almost 0 bedrooms or parking spots. If there's if somehow you're developing our transportation
And
infrastructure.
even more robust, and they invest in that.
I don't know, but I would ask
I
you to
like
do some homework.
I can.
Or-
I think I can present some examples like
Yeah.
that I know of around.
If I could respond to Nathan as well with this, I think that one of the things that we can anticipate is that we as a board have to be more cognizant when plans come in to say, well, what are you doing to accommodate public transportation? Is there appropriate shelter? Is there an appropriate place where a bus or a shuttle can park? Because that's going to be essential to making the reduced parking requirement work. Means that public transportation has to be genuinely accessible, not just on paper, but in reality. And that means planning. And we're going to have, that means for us, we're going to have to insist on seeing something like that. That's what I would.
That's right. Maybe they say you need to invest in that shuttle service. You guys need to invest so it can be more robust, so they can run more routes daily, so it really becomes really, accessible public transportation out there.
Maybe not that prescriptive, but
Yes.
that there needs to be a transportation element for you to
Yes.
get this, kind of like our OSRD, right, where you get a credit, you get a, what's it called?
Well, that's a good point.
Density.
Density bonus.
Density bonus,
Yes.
thank you. You get a parking
Reduction, yes.
because you
Yes.
meet these.
That's
I
interesting.
like that. That is very
Absolutely.
interesting.
I'd really like to see
Incentivizing.
some creative ideas.
That's it. By the way, I didn't
on that.
mention, which is good, and thank goodness for the good work of my colleague Alicia Hersey, Community Development, and the Affordable Housing Committee and the Affordable Housing Trust and this board. We have our inclusionary housing bylaw. So that as all these developments that happens there, every 5th unit will be deed restricted as low to moderate income. That's the other reason we really want to see this stuff delivered, so we can get those affordable units for our folks. And we do have the density bonus with that as well. And so I just want to make mention of that what we're doing out here is to help really deliver, that mix of affordable. I'll say one quick thing about the cars though. We had an interesting discussion last week at the zoning board about the proposed Chapter 40B development on Fitchburg Road, Ayer Commons. And there were some comments, they were looking at the plans just generally, said, is there enough parking for these folks? Is there going to be a lot of 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms? And the comments said, well, you have to have more parking because you have to have at least, every family has at least 2 cars. You have to have 2 cars. We have to step back. And I know it's easy to think, well, all people are just, maybe like me or like us. the folks that are going to, thank God, that that's going to provide housing for, many of them, they don't have the means and wherewithal to keep 2 cars on the road.
There are many reasons to not have 2 cars, and this board has discussed
Thank
this in
you.
many ways because we're all very
thank
happy
you.
to. So I think
So, right, this
on a
is, we
different
need
thought
to, that's
process,
right,
and you know
start
that
getting
as
into
we've
this
worked
thing
through
of saying,
parking
folks,
here
a lot of
before.
people, it's that 1 car to just to be able to keep your family, and then to take care of your family. People are, oh no, everyone wants to, I'm sure we all want, but actually, no. You know, if you can get 1 car out of your family's life, that opens up so much income that you can, okay, you know, so anyway. Yeah.
Any further reflections or comments from the board?
Yes.
Please do, Ken.
Anybody else?
Yes, go ahead, Ken, please.
Okay, Alan, let's do a couple
I
of
have
technical
kidneys
things
and
here.
medicine.
Yes.
Sorry.
The first thing you mentioned, I have the code right here.
Yes?
You mentioned that the buildings on the West Air Village can be built right to the sidewalk.
Correct.
It's 10-foot setback, is it not?
Oh, you know what, Ken, I'm sorry, right, I'm sorry, I was speaking sort of figuratively, because you're right, we did give some, that's right, spaces to a 10-foot, and you're right, we did that so they create more of a sidewalk presence in cafes and that thing. Thank you.
Okay.
It is 10 feet.
So the long and the short of it is that there's 2 transects down there.
Correct,
The 5 and the 5.1.
correct.
In the 5.1, you mentioned that the minimum, I think, was 2 stories everywhere,
It's 2 stories, right, with both transects.
not 1 story. Got it right here. 5.1, building height, 1 story minimum, 3 story maximum. So do you want to consider that change when you look at the rest? And make that 2 stories?
Yes, we need to.
Better make a note of that then.
Oh, it's got it.
Yeah, right. So it says here that you got a 1 story minimum and a 3 story maximum in the T5.1. So you want to take a look at that. The distance that you're talking about on the street, is that driven by actual lots that are out there, or the thought that there's going to be a development that needs that kind of length that you're talking about, stretching to 384 feet from 300, whatever it is, 384 from 260?
From 260, yes.
260, is it based on a desire that you want a longer lot? What's that based on?
It's looking, yeah, and I'm sorry if we had the benefit, if I had the visual of the lots, what you'll notice, once you get away from close to like sort of the Devon's Plaza, that's the only sort of longer lot that's out there. All the rest of them up the run, because actually on the other side you have a lot of small homes, if you can visualize these, that are in tough shape. And they're very small, going up the veterinary hospital as you move up. So this is right. Most of the developers, again, independent over the year, they said, yeah, we'd want to acquire a couple of these lots, and we need to assemble them to accommodate the building development we would need. So it really has to do with the physical characteristics, the dimensional, spatial characteristics of the lot pattern that runs up the road there.
Okay, so based on that, you made another statement that ultimately when they come to us, we'll have some kind of input as to the way the building looks on the lot.
That's
But
correct.
I'm not sure that is that specified here anywhere? In the form-based code, we're
So that-
looking for them to build it based on the form-based code.
It is. If we get into some of the language of the purpose of the code and other things,
We have
it's
enough
in it,
flexibility.
talking about it. I believe you do. You have that discretionary authority
Aren't
in
you the
terms
one
of the
that said-
character.
I thought you said we didn't have we don't understand what character is as a board. That's an individual.
You didn't up until we drafted and formulated a form-based code. You know what the form and the places you're delivering now. It's not in other words, you understand the contextual development of what we're delivering out there. You don't anywhere else.
If I may clarify, I'll try to help Ken, if I may, Mr. Chair, that I think what you did say, Alan, is that when a developer comes to us, there are going to be some discretionary things that we work through with the developer.
Yes.
And one of those discretionary things that's not in the code is to make requests for visual breaks in the property. You're not proposing that we put that, write it into the code, but that we present that as discretionary.
Okay. You feel confident enough that that's here, we can do that. It's not a legal issue at all. We
I believe you have that in the
we
general
discretion.
powers of site plan review, Mr. Diskin, that you have to, on the character of the neighborhood, and you can keep telling them you need to do better. And
We will
Yes.
investigate.
We will, I just will say as a general comment that ends up into areas of subjectivity that are very tricky and difficult. You know, when you consider, quote, local character, and that's a very tricky topic. However, I think that what Nathan said is right on the money. As long as we can maintain some discretionary authority,
Yes.
I think that we can get something that's appropriate, as
Yes.
long as we maintain
On the
that
architectural
discretion.
fenestration, right, of just that we want to see it broken up and not, you have that authority to kick that back and tell them, guys, you need to improve a little bit more on that. But what I can do, Ken, you're right, we're dancing around a little bit. I have no problem writing it to be one very easy paragraph, probably 3 to 4 sentences, articulating what you're saying, that the planning board, will have the discretionary authority to review and improve, the architectural fenestration
Okay, just
of
double
the
check, it
building.
might be there.
Yes.
We've made-
In other words, not the architectural style you folks are talking about. That isn't we're not, you're talking about the functional fenestration, that how this thing reads. We are not going to see blank monolithic structures out there.
Okay, you feel comfortable, Mr. Chairman?
Actually, in the code right now, it says
So-
that it has to be broken up every 16 feet. It's actually in the code, but you can take it one step further.
So Alan, what, are you looking for a formal endorsement for the, or for?
Excuse me.
I have a-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I've got some questions.
I know you do. I just wondered, like, where are we going? Because we have some other things on the agenda I wanted to make sure we get to.
And it's not this evening. I don't need this
Okay,
evening.
that's my
It's just-
point.
This
is
was
that
just to
this
start the
evening is to hear
discussion.
you have the discussion, but
And
we
then I
don't
can
have to
provide
do any
more.
kind of vote today,
Oh,
which
yes.
is good because I want all of us to have time to reflect.
Oh, yes.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Thanks.
yes.
And I recommend, since we have a meeting on August 23rd, I believe, we could pose questions or
Yes.
further research to
That's
Alan
right.
tonight
Okay.
and discuss that on the 23rd. And on the 23rd, we could set the public hearing dates, which should start in September. They could go into early October.
Okay. That's
Take the town meeting.
So what I'd like to do, if we could, to take a few more questions, but I would like to wrap this up by 7 o'clock so that we have a sufficient time for the Stratton Hill material.
Okay, so you made a statement that the request for the for the parking change, off-site parking, off-street parking change, was for West Main Street form-based code.
Correct.
That's not the case. The section you're referring to, which is 9.1.2, is the entire town.
Yes, I understand. I was referencing that section just as reference, but yes, we would have to embed it into the form-based code as a parking reg, yes.
So you're not recommending that we change the whole 9.1.2?
No, right, I was just referencing that section, so you could see that. And yeah, we need to go back and say, how do we insert that right into the West Air Village form-based code as a parking reg? You're amending the code.
May I ask a follow-up on that?
You'll have a-
That we'd
well,
do it
look.
for the whole town and get it
Well,
over with.
whether we do it
Wow,
for the-
okay, I'm sorry, I didn't think you, wow, okay.
Whether or not we do it for the whole
Heck
town.
yeah.
May
Woo.
I jump in on this one?
Okay.
So you're clarifying that what we see
Yes.
here in black and white is not what you're asking for.
I move to make.
You're asking for us to consider only the form-based code in West End Village, not the whole.
That's correct.
Not the whole
And
section.
I'm sorry, I was going to qualify that with my dialogue tonight, yes.
Okay. That's
Yes.
what I have, thank you, sir.
So follow up with Mr. Diskin on that. 9.1.2 off-street parking requirements refers only to multifamily dwellings. My understanding of the buildings and transects out there are going to be mixed-use buildings. You might want to work
They're
on
multifamily, they'll be multifamily.
They will also have businesses underneath them.
Yes.
You might want to work on the language that's mixed use and multifamily.
Because you break down in.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Very good.
Each
Um,
transect has a
yeah.
list of the parking types.
Because they are uniquely different types of zoning.
So,
Going back to the sign,
There are only certain frontage types
no, well,
that are permitted in that code out there.
yes, and our
Yes,
parking,
and there
our
are
parking-
some further up, you're right, and from where those houses are, very good, quite right.
Yeah, I would
Mixed
include
use
mixed use and,
properties, yes.
because you speak of multifamily dwellings.
Yes.
You put a business underneath, I
Yes.
think it crosses the line.
Quite right.
Just figured, let's do it once, let's not do it more
Yes,
than once.
yes.
Talking about the actual, increasing the height, increasing the maximum length. We've talked a lot about the lot sizes there, and the lots there are very narrow.
Yes.
I am very concerned that going to a four-story building is going to, with the limited amount of space around behind the building, is going to bump up against the NFPA requirements for the equipment that we use to maintain public safety.
Yes.
So I would love to find out before I make a decision on allowing a fourth story on these buildings, given the lot dimensions, the required space behind the buildings, the required fire lanes, that we're not going to be coming back to the town and saying, gee, we need a fire engine. Because we just discovered fire engines cost a lot of money, and we're going to be replacing another one in the next year. So when we get to a building that's 4 feet tall, that's 4 stories tall, assuming around 50 feet, I know we don't need an aerial truck for something below 100 feet, but what I don't know is we have the distance behind the building so the truck can stand up and the angle of repose on the ladder
Yes.
will be appropriate.
Yes.
So I'm going to have a hard time. So that's just one thing I want to make sure that we have that
Okay,
cleared
so
up.
I think.
So who's going to follow up on that? Mark or Alan on this question?
Oh, yes. I will, but frankly, anytime, when developers do come in, and, we have a good process where they often come in and have first conceptual discussions with presentations. And of course, we invite the police, the fire, and of course, whatever they submit must secure the approval of the fire department and the police department. That's step one. Looking at any preliminary conceptual plans. So yes, absolutely, Mr. Tillotson, that is an absolute.
Is there any information that any of us would like Alan to bring to us prior to the next meeting that would help us in our thoughts and deliberations?
No.
Would anyone in the public like to ask any questions of Alan or have comments? Yes, please, if you'd like to come up.
It's okay. Alan, have you considered covered bike parking to put that somehow into the plan? If you're going to encourage people to have fewer cars.
Yes, actually, we have it on our site plan review, and actually, almost all the developers, and I've talked independently, they're coming here, and we always stress the whole infrastructure project that's going out there. We're going to have the finest bike lanes in the whole town out there, connecting again to the commuter rail station and out to Devon's. So all the developers told me we're going to design some very robust cycling amenities into the buildings, because that's actually who they're going to try to market and sell the properties to, the folks working at Devon's, with the whole mindset of saying, try to get that car out of your life every day, all day. So absolutely, we need to be very, very strong with that. I love it. Yes.
Alan, I want to thank you for
Thank
the
you.
presentation,
Very
bringing us
good.
this information.
Thank you. And hey, we thank the people of the town. They were very progressive and supportive with both of these form-based codes at town meetings. And if we can tweak it, and I agree with what Mr. Tillotson just said also about this, folks. I'll just say, we have a housing crisis in this town. We need to deliver more residential units. And what we don't like is we don't, I won't get to it, we did these form-based codes to channel the development where it needs to happen, where we have existing roads already, where we have existing infrastructure. We are not going up, taking out our forests and meadows and lands. We are
That might
not.
not be the right way to point.
I know that. I do this. I'm not. You guys know how I am.
I know that. I just knew that wasn't targeted.
Okay.
We've heard it before.
You have. Well, I'm going to do it once more. We're not going into our historic neighborhoods, tearing down and infilling,
Got it.
We
Yes.
develop on our corridors out here because this is what's going to pay the bill for our 4 new firefighters when the grant expires, for our new fire engines, for our police department, and so the residential tax rates in this town can remain stable and people can live here. We need to deliver this housing. We're doing it right on the gates of Devon's.
Got it.
It's going to generate the income we need, and it's going to be one of the coolest villages in New England.
Thank you, Alan.
We got it.
And
Thank you all very
And
much.
we will see you Thursday or Saturday for Peroni Park Vision.
Yes, thank you very much for that.
Okay.
Okay, folks.
Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you.
The next item is Stratton Hill, and in a moment I'm going to turn it over to Mark in his report, but I want to direct our attention. There are 3 things I hope we accomplish tonight.
Ironic though.
First is, There's the issue of an extension. A lot of us, because for scheduling reasons, will not be able to make a meeting on September 13th. So we're currently in the process of negotiating a meeting in the week prior to that. I think we're looking at September 8th or 9th?
8th,
September 8th.
which would be a Thursday.
But it's not clear even that September 8th will be able to complete the work necessary to vote on the preliminary plan. So one issue is an extension. The two other issues are we have an RFP for review of the traffic study that I hope that we can come to some understanding tonight with. And the third thing, I think we can make some progress on where we are with the waivers. Just a reminder, we don't have to come to a decision on waivers until we approach the definitive plan. But it is appropriate in the preliminary stage to give an applicant an indication of what our concerns and our thinking are, and I think we can successfully do that. So with that in mind, I'd like to turn it over to Mark to give us an assessment of where we are.
Okay, since the last meeting, I was working with the very few number of consulting firms that replied to our RFP. It was basically down to two. TEP, for some reason, fell through. So we had a proposal from MDM, Transportation Consultants, and then from Niche Engineering. And you may recall that we used Niche at the Old Town successfully. Even though personally I felt MDM had a very responsive proposal, I really liked how I interacted with the guy as far as questions. It turns out that they had done some prior work for Mr. Collins and Mr. Moulton way back when in the early
On this
2000s.
very site.
Yeah. So, given that, it could be perceived as a conflict, I think the best thing to do is not to go with MDM, but rather to go with Niche Engineering, which we had experience with. They're a really reputable firm. I thought their scope to us was very comprehensive. And so we have a revised scope from them this evening. Now, my recommendation wouldn't be that as a full board, we go through each line item of their proposals, since that would take a real long time. But just as we had for writing the RFP, we had a little subcommittee of Ken, Jonathan, and myself, and Dan Van Shelkwick to look at this. That we maybe do that when we meet with, once we decide on Niche, hopefully with the motion this evening, that we have a little subgroup meeting next week with them to fine tune the scope. So that would be my recommendation. Though I know Mr. Tillotson has brought some concerns to the board that he talked about earlier regarding non-vehicular transportation in the area, which I think are really good points that we really should emphasize in the refined scope meeting that we have later. So that's what I have to say initially about that.
So why don't we pause and work on that then?
Well, then I just want to go through my whole litany just real quick. As far as the waivers, I think the board, there are several waivers that are probably, somewhat the landscaping, the road striping, the test hole data, that sort of thing. I think we can discuss, perhaps even resolve this evening. But there are two items that town council has said that she would get an opinion for us on. One is the road configuration of the dead end, and the other is for the length of a dead end road system in this case. So since she said she would be able to get me her opinion on those issues for the August 23rd meeting, I would recommend that the planning board not make a definitive finding on those two at least until we have town council's opinion in hand, just for those two. So that's my recommendation on that. And lastly, as far as the timing of subsequent meetings, and talking with Heather and Jess from the Conservation Commission, it's my understanding that the Conservation Commission is working with their peer review consultant, who is going full speed ahead on developing a report. That report may be able to get to us by the 23rd of August, though who knows? They're meeting on Thursday, so we'll have a better idea of that. But it's possible we might not get the Conservation Commission's recommendation on the conservation analysis until early September. So that's just something to keep in mind as far as the scheduling is concerned. And
Thanks.
I think that's all I have for the big picture.
Thank you, Mark. I just want to make, and we need to be updated as early as possible about the contingencies for that September meeting, and make
Yeah.
sure whether it's on or not, we just ought to be in communication.
So far, it appears that it's very likely to be able to happen on September 8th, which is a Thursday. It's the same evening the Conservation Commission meets, though they will be meeting over Zoom. So if they meet over Zoom, we can meet in this room. And that rhymes. So it looks very likely that we should be able to
As
confirm that
entertaining as
very
we get
soon.
around here.
So
So-
that would mean 2 meetings in September, one on the 8th and one on the 29th. So,
I'd like to turn our attention to the first item, where we can work on the RFP. And I just want to remind us that we had a traffic report, and the whole reason that we're going through this process of review is because there were areas of concern that it wasn't, we wanted to be beyond a traffic study to be a safety study. The issue of safety it's top on everyone's minds. And so what the question I want to throw out, and I really mean this as a question, I haven't arrived at a decision myself, is the scope as currently defined in this document sufficient for gathering the safety information that we want, particularly regarding pedestrian, cyclists, and other users of recreational activities around the causeway and, of course, around the beach? Jeff, I believe you had some thoughts on that?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I wanted to address a different topic that
I'm sorry.
Mr. Archambault brought up. But yeah, no, I think.
Did you see niches?
I'm sorry.
Has everyone seen the niche proposal that we
I
have?
hope that came in.
Well, first of all, for clarification,
Yeah.
the RFP we put out.
The RFP is what we put, they
contains
put
the
this.
information
Right.
we're
Yeah.
looking for.
So
the
This is
proposal,
not- this is the proposal.
correct,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. These are the proposals, we put out a request, this is the proposal that came back.
I've read through it. I just don't have a copy.
Okay.
Yes, I don't have a copy with you right now. So
Yeah.
the, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll take mine.
The conversation I want to have, and it's probably outside of the scope of our conversation here this evening, is that there are empirical ways to determine non-vehicular traffic right now. And I know traffic design engineers use them, and I also know other people who do work use them. I've spoken with this about Mr. Archambault in the past. The RFP that was put together by Mr. Archambault and circulated does reflect a great deal of work that was done by a couple of the abutters to the project. So I'm very comfortable that the RFP itself
It's fine.
the scope in the RFP is defined. The scope of the RFP properly defines what is needed. The piece that when I read through, and boy, I love traffic studies. I kid you not. I do. These guys know it. Comes to my forensic thing we talked about earlier. There is a comment in the traffic study from the proponent that says that due to a lack of constructed infrastructure in that general area, counting pedestrian and non-vehicular traffic is not a significant piece. And as long as the board sees it differently, which we did in the RFP, I think that's an important part to include. So thank you for that.
In fact, Jeff, I said
Yeah.
that's the whole point of
Yeah,
the
exactly.
review, is because we want to get at that, because we are interested in a safety issue, not just a mere traffic
Yeah,
count.
exactly. However, the one piece that I wanted to talk about, if I may, and this is going to take us off this train of thought for a moment, was in reading through Mark's updated town planner report for the Stratton Hill preliminary subdivision plan. So far, the interdepartmental comments from the fire department say no fire department issues. Typically, the fire department is the group that comes to us and says that road's too long. So I would like to ask that we make sure that we can construe from this comment that the road's not too long in their current thinking. That's all I'm going to say. I don't think it's a discussable point right now, but I want to make sure, because I know Mark's talking to town council also, but our public safety people say no issues.
Good. Thank you. I wanted to ask you this, Jeff, did you look through this engineering?
I have looked through it, yeah.
So do you think, what I wanted to ask you directly is,
Today.
do we need to make
I
any
know,
modifications?
literally just came in.
I know it just, but are you is there anything that, do you think there's something missing, that,
Okay.
is there anything you propose that they should be looking at that we haven't, that hasn't been captured in this document yet?
My understanding is this. We need a peer review group. Niche engineering is presented to us as a solution. I like it as a better solution than using the proponents' study group. I believe that in the meeting with niche engineering, given my read of this and the read of the scope, there are some clarification conversations that will take place that will not
Is that true?
go outside the scope
Oh, yeah.
of this.
Right.
It always happens that way.
Okay.
So it's a way of basically saying, we got 30 points here. Let's make sure we touch all 30. And let's make sure, because residents gave us information that they're particularly concerned with, we should include those also and not give them the bum's rush, if you will.
I
And
agree.
that's why
Is that
I
fair? That's-
suggested that we have a a scoping meeting next week with them,
Okay.
provided that you authorize me to tell them you got it.
So
That we have a meeting with them next week so they can hit the ground running, and so that we can refine the scope to make sure that the pedestrian safety issues are included.
Excellent.
and to be honest with you, I'm actually prepared to make a motion that we accept.
Before we do that,
Just so
I
you
have
know.
two
Yeah.
steps before that.
Mhm.
First, I want to ask if our other colleagues have any comments on this, and then I want to turn it to the representative of the applicant to see if
And we should-
Mr. Collins has any comments about it before we go to the vote. So first, Nathan, Julie, Ken, any thoughts did anyone want to start with some thoughts on the proposal from Niche?
I'll just piggyback on if we get the fire department's input, and then there's proposals from this traffic study, we should go back. If any of those changes would affect the fire department or the police department's assessment.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah, if that occurs.
Yes.
Julie?
Good.
Ken?
I thought that the proposal was complete. I particularly liked the item they have, which is their item 15, which is to attend up to one, I guess it's one, coordination meeting, the town planner, the town superintendent of public works, the building commissioner, the town engineer, the police chief, and the fire chief to discuss the project and coordinate niche engineering services. So I think that's a pretty important meeting. I don't remember seeing that typed up that way before on the other proposal. I mean, they typically have some kind of a meeting with the planning board, and they also included 2 other virtual meetings with the client, which could be, with the planning board. So I think that's a critical point, that they meet with all, if you can put that meeting together, that would be a big step for me.
And do you anticipate, Mark, that would be the meeting where we could address issues about
We
the
could.
nature of the scope and what's recorded, or no? Or is that a different
Yeah,
meeting?
That's
may
a
or may
different
not-
meeting.
It's a different
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just clarifying.
Probably a different meeting. One, first of all, we need to refine the scope. And then immediately after that, shortly after that, we have a meeting with the other department.
And-
Okay, that
And
sounds fair.
It's not necessarily refinement of scope. It's a definition. So I read this and I did not see the actual intersections we asked for in the
Right, that's what I
RFP.
was looking for.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I see virtual meetings. Guess what? We need to actually talk about Sandy
Specifics.
at Snake,
Oh, right.
Snake
Yeah.
at Calvin,
Yeah.
Snake at Wright.
Agreed.
Exactly.
So that's the level of confirmation that we have when they talk about traffic counters.
Standish.
Traffic
I know
counters
that
and
one.
Standish, and
Right.
basically, we just need to, here's what we're concerned about in that neighborhood. It's specifically laid out in the RFP. However, I do see in here that there are meetings, and that's typically takes place in those meetings.
Right.
Okay.
Going back to them and saying, would you revise it to put that in here,
Oh,
is
no,
a
that's-
timely step I don't
Oh,
want to
yeah,
take.
yeah.
And that's
Plus-
why I say I'm
Yeah,
very
that's always
confident that
anticipated.
we can
Just
get
like
that
you
all
find
done.
errors in a zoning bylaw when you
Yeah.
do it, there are little things that will be missing,
and
or so to speak,
and that will
or
reflect.
underemphasized,
Yeah,
I should say.
and that'll reflect
Yeah.
the residents' input from the
Oh,
previous
yes.
traffic study
Right.
information we
Yes.
have for the RFP. So I'm confident that we're in good space with this.
That's number one.
Sorry?
Mr. Collins?
Yeah.
Review the study area to ensure the study covers the extent of the affected intersections.
Exactly.
It just doesn't.
No, I
call
like
them out
Niche.
specifically.
Niche does all of the town of Groton's peer reviews, so I've worked with Niche for decades.
All right.
They've done the peer review on the Groton side of this site.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you choose them to do the peer engineering review when we come in with the definitive. It would make a great deal of sense. They're a fine firm. You'll do no better.
Good. So,
Oh, and how much money do you need? Because I'll get you
well,
a check.
Their quote, if I can say,
Yep.
15.
Yep. I'll
But
get you
don't
a-
write it yet. But I have to talk, there may be a little bit of a contingency in there for,
Yep.
extra stuff, but.
No,
we'll
but
figure it out.
the way these things are done normally, there's an account set up
Yes.
that you can
We'll
spend
set up an
from.
account, you
So
will
I'll
deposit
get
into it,
you,
we pay them out of that.
and then if there's excess, we get it back, so.
Exactly.
And
So
we
I'll
like-
get you a check.
And we want to get it done during the high season when the beach
Yep.
is open, so.
Right.
Yes,
Yes,
yes. That's
exactly.
why I'm kind of pushing the time on this. 'Cause
I do have one other question. Are you gonna be dealing with the Boston office or Worcester? Do you know?
Boy, that's a good question. You know,
Everything's saying
Looks,
Boston.
looks like Boston to
It
me,
does.
but I don't know. And
Does
not
it ma-
that-
does it
no, I
make-
think it is Boston, because the guy mentioned it takes him about an hour and a half to get here.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that would not be Worcester. I
Yeah.
hope.
yeah. Do you mind
He's
if
on a
I
bike.
keep a copy?
He's on a bike.
He's on a
You
bike.
may have that
Yeah,
copy.
but no, you'll enjoy, if you've never worked with
Yeah.
Niche before,
Oh, no, we did.
I saw it.
you'll enjoy your interaction.
so good. Sounds like we need a vote to.
Do we have any comments from the public before?
Oh, I'm very sorry.
If you
Yes, we
want,
do.
I mean,
Come on
so-
up.
Just one comment, not a question, but I just want to, in terms of the safety and pedestrians. This morning, before 7 o'clock, there were 3 joggers, a bike, and a walker go by my house. I live on the straightaway, on Wright Road, so, you know, just all before 7 o'clock, and there are already 5 people that I saw within like a 20-minute period, so, however, you know, I don't know if that's going to be taken into account during the study, but traffic does happen, pedestrian and vehicular, both prior to 7 a.m.
Yep. Well, that's why in our request for these proposals, we emphasize the pedestrian bicycle part of it, more so than we might in other subdivisions because of that, so. And we will make that clear to Niche when we talk to them.
Yes.
Not to be redundant, but I don't know if you've actually added it into your study, but I had asked for you to look at the intersection where Wright Road intersects with Wright Way.
I think that's on the list of intersections that we wanted to have.
They made the
studied.
list.
Yeah.
I just want to elaborate. My biggest concern is the winter, because it's very hard to get up some of these right-of-ways. First of all, the condition of the road is terrible, and with the ice, people can't get up easily, and they're sliding back. So they're flooring it just to try to get out of the road.
Colleen, I promise it's in there, and as a person who's had to floor it on both Right Way and Standish, it will be, it
And
will
good
be.
driveway.
Mine's not as bad as these two. These are very different than my
Yeah.
own road,
No,
but,
I
so
understand.
I just want to reassure you, it's definitely being discussed and will be discussed.
Name and
that's
I'm
okay,
sorry, I
Mr.
forgot to
Chair.
ask for names and addresses. That's my mistake. But if you name and address, please.
Susan Tordella,
Thank you,
Egway.
Susan.
So, my street feeds out to Wright Road, and I'm frequently biking and walking on Wright Road down toward the end, and there's no painted lines right now. I don't think there's any room for a bike lane or a pedestrian walkway. I mean, what is the plan for that? I mean, how wide are lanes supposed to be? Is it gonna be a 9-foot lane on each side, a 6-foot lane?
That's why we're having this company do a study, because we don't know, and we don't even know if there will be any proposals to widen the road or not, or do anything specifically. This is just authorizing them to do the study. So we don't know any of those answers yet. That's up to them to advise us.
To make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation to the planning board, you know, what they recommend for traffic improvements, pedestrian safety improvements. So we don't know yet.
Just for clarification, the recommendations are gonna be made based on this project going forward.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
If
Yes.
if the project doesn't go forward, there is no,
Right, yeah.
we have no authority to make recommendations to change the road.
No, that would be a town project in that case, but, you know.
Just for information, do you guys know how wide the right-of-way is on Wright Road? Meaning how wide the actual town road is, including the pavement and the edges of the road?
Do you?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Looked at every single plan around that area.
The problem is the road's falling apart.
It's 30 feet wide.
How many?
30,
30.
extremely narrow. Most roads are 40 to 50. We even have some that are 60 feet wide in this town, with sidewalks on both sides. So there's a very limited amount of right-of-way which is owned by the town on Wright Road. It's narrow, very, very narrow. It might be the narrowest road in town that we have. It's an actual road.
Right.
No, there were some 20s.
It's some 20s?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they might be like a private driveway, but it is a condition that's very, very tricky because of its narrow width.
And bends and hills.
Oh, yeah,
and depths.
all of that.
So you're saying the project is not going forward, it has not been approved, you're still in the process of approving it?
Oh, yeah, we
Oh,
haven't even
no.
got to the
Oh, my
definitive
gosh.
plan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're only in the preliminary plan.
Yeah, this is very
What are we
early
looking at,
on.
like 6 months, 9 months, a year?
Maybe 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, I'd say
And it
6
could
months.
still be denied?
Yeah, but then you'd have something else, you
Right.
know. I'd be very, there will be something else there, man. If it's done.
Well, hold on.
But again, that's way beyond, I don't see that happening.
Let's explain the way out.
Yeah, but 6 months is
For
good.
clarification,
Let's
Yeah.
roll the clock back a few minutes.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, would you like to explain exactly where we are, for clarification?
So where we are is, this is open space residential, what is the D? Design.
Oh, sorry,
Development.
Development, I always get the D wrong. And so it's a multi-part process. The first part is a preliminary process. That's where we are right now, the preliminary. And the point of the preliminary is just to come to a common understanding of the overall concept and its doability, for lack of a better word. That is roughly, well, actually precisely, what's the yield count? What are we looking at in terms of number of lots? What are we looking at as a general shape? What's the ratio of the open space to developed space? Those are all questions in the preliminary, including beginning, but not concluding, beginning the traffic study, beginning to look at the waivers. But the preliminary, even if the preliminary is approved, it only means we go to the next one, which is the definitive. And the definitive is where the applicant comes to us with specific and particular engineering. This is where we really do the deep dive and we say, we answer all the questions about safety, fire, stormwater, water access, sewage, aesthetics, landscaping. I mean, all of that precise dimensional and specific stuff happens in the more if you think this is complicated, and the even more complex and in-depth definitive plan stage. Is that helpful? It's a
Yeah,
long,
thank you.
so the whole thing is, if it feels like a long process, it's because it is. It is long.
yeah, but 6 to 9 months, realistically.
All right.
All right. What happened to our Jeff?
Do we get a motion?
No, Jeff? So what's happening next is we need to vote just to authorize Mark to continue negotiation with Niche, approving Niche as the vendor for this particular study.
So moved.
Second.
Somebody find Jeff.
Can someone find Jeff,
Why?
please?
you have a
We're gonna
quorum.
quorum.
We have a quorum.
He
All
already
right.
voiced his
Just
stuff.
Any deliberation, any discussion?
Plus,
All
it's your
those in
only
favor?
choice.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
All right.
Did you
Now
want to
get
throw a
you,
vote?
Oh,
in?
there he is.
Say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
That's
All
to
right.
accept Niche
Okay.
as the
All right, so
engineer.
I will contact Niche tomorrow morning.
Mr.
and,
Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Julie.
Sorry, Mark. I do just want to offer to the people that I see as I walk and run. Having been through a lot of these traffic studies, I've learned a little bit about how they go. I'm not official or anything, but I kind of get a better gist. So I'm happy to talk if you see me on the road about kind of how this process goes, because it's a little different than it sounds like, I think. And we've explained it before, so I don't think it's for tonight, but I'd be happy to be a resource in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
As our town planner articulated earlier in the meeting, there's some things we're not quite ready to talk about because we need some input from conservation and we need some input from our town council. However, there are 3 waiver requests on the table I think we can have a discussion about. In our recent amendments to the subdivision regulations, we added language regarding waivers that it is the obligation of the applicant for any waiver request to articulate to the board one of 2 things for any waiver. One, why the waiver is irrelevant and why the initial obligation is irrelevant and there should be waived. There are special circumstances. Things happen where there's a requirement that just doesn't make sense. And a waiver is the right thing to ask for, and we discuss it. That's one condition. The other is, if that's not the case, that there's something that the waiver fulfills some kind of positive benefit to the people of Ayer, now or in the future. That, in other words, a waiver is not an arbitrary request. It has to be rooted in either it's not applicable and should be disregarded, or there's a tangible material benefit to the people of Ayer to this waiver. So what I'd like to do is go through the 3 requests that we can discuss, the landscaping, the signage, and the test hole data. And if Mr. Collins doesn't mind, I'd like to ask him to make the case for the waiver for each of these and explain the thinking of the applicant, and then we can discuss the relative applicability thereof.
Sounds perfect.
Sounds good? Let's start with the landscaping plan.
Well, the landscape plan, of course, we're not asking for a waiver, a complete waiver of not providing any landscape plan. What we were suggesting is it would make sense to provide a landscape design for the area that's going to be restored as a park at the entrance to the site where there previously had been the left-hand subdivision road roughed in, and also to perhaps provide landscaping designs as you go further on up towards the right, on the right-hand side. So specific areas rather than a street tree plan, which kind of makes no sense in a wooded area. So what we're suggesting is that what we will likely bring in at the definitive plan stage is a very detailed landscape plan for a park area, for restoration of the areas that have previously been disturbed, and a couple of other locations where it makes sense for restoration.
So it seems like the request then doesn't seem saying, you're not saying we don't want to do a landscape plan.
Oh, yeah,
You're
no,
saying the restricted landscape plan is described. I want to turn to our town planner. What you just heard what Mr. Collins said, is that consistent with the legal obligations as presented in the regulations?
I think so, but I'm looking at that page on the subdivision regs now.
Well, what you have in virtually all municipal subdivision regs is a requirement for street trees every so many feet. And this is a wooded area, rather than providing a plan that shows street trim, the inclusion of street trees in an already wooded area every so many feet. What we would actually like to provide is landscape designs for disturbed areas that we're going to restore. We'll also provide street tree information, but I guess I'm asking for you to consider that we will bring you more than you generally get, I guess. So rather than, we don't want to bring you anything, we're going to bring you more.
At this stage, I'm wondering if the waiver.
And you really don't need to take action on
Yeah, I'm
it.
wondering
This one we don't.
You really
if
don't.
the waiver request is actually premature.
It is.
Like,
I think
we don't,
it
we
is.
don't know.
But again, as long as you're comfortable that that's what we're going to bring you,
Maybe,
that's fine.
Yeah.
So would it be comfortable then that we come to the discussion of landscape, that we make that an open conversation about what we want to see?
Yeah, and that would be just fine, really.
Yeah, and if at that point a waiver is definitely determined to be applicable, then. it's
And it
applicable.
would make sense that we have that conversation once I bring in what we're going to bring in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Jeff, please.
If you don't
Jeff.
mind, we will know the park layout at that point.
Yeah.
We will know
That's
where
right.
we need the restoration to happen.
Correct.
Yeah.
We'll have the input from the Conservation Commission. So there's pieces of this information we actually need to
Yeah.
bring.
Yeah.
So what it sounds to me in some ways this is moot. That
Yeah, it is.
You probably don't even need, everything you say sounds, to me, sounds consistent with an ordinary process. I think you have, the door is still open if in further discussions that's
Sure.
necessary, but I think at this point we could just say, resolved, we'll
Yeah.
talk about landscaping when landscaping becomes a relevant part. No, I mean, I see you shaking your head. Mr. Diskin, what comment, please?
I think what you want to look at here is instead of the waiver from the entire section, which is what you asked for,
Yeah,
section 6, piece H, or subsection H, look at the specific line item that you want the waiver from. For instance, there's two pieces here
yeah,
that potentially don't apply. Now, first of all, I want to clarify something for the board, the chairman, the applicant, and the public. The landscaping plan we're talking about, and you guys can comment on this, is a landscaping plan that's regarding the construction of the road, the subdivision road. It's not the landscaping plan that involves lots. We don't control those
oh,
lots.
yes, yeah, I see what you mean,
Okay.
yes, that's
So
quite
we're talking
correct.
about inside that.
Subdivision
in this case,
improvements.
It's the area not
That's
on
correct.
lots.
40-foot right-of-way, basically, the area of construction
Well,
of the new road.
it's actually gonna
And
be
some
more than
on
that,
additional
Yeah.
land.
some additional land,
Right.
yeah.
So, for instance, it says on here, the landscaping plan shall identify the location and varieties of all existing trees over 12 inches in diameter. Okay, so when we did new developments that had no clearing ever done,
Yeah,
we went out as a board and we looked at that specifically, staked it out,
Yeah.
staked the center line of the road, we looked at those specific locations, and we made an attempt to save big trees.
mhm,
Most of the time, and I think maybe 100% of the time, because of the extent of grading, utility installation, underground water, sewer, electric, it didn't really matter. We tried to save trees that were just off the area, if close by
Yeah.
the construction and so forth.
I'm gonna modify your statement a little bit. We have been successful in the project across from the schools.
Yeah.
Where there were 26 identified trees and I think 24 are still standing.
mhm.
Right, but
So
we took.
we've had
That
some.
was really good.
Yeah.
Let me clarify for a second, Mr. Tillage.
I didn't miss, I
Through
just
the
wanted to
chair.
understand, yeah, sorry.
That process was done under the clearing requirement, 9.6 which will have a separate site plan.
Yes,
So what I'm getting at is there's actually two pieces here.
yep.
There'll be a site plan
Thank you.
requirement for clearing the whole place
Mhm.
under 10, I think it's 9.6, right, the clearing
Yeah,
requirement?
yes, yeah.
That gave us the ability to look at everything.
Mhm.
So subsequently on the road, what ends up happening a lot is the grading just
Oh, yeah,
takes care of
no,
it.
understood.
So I'm gonna recommend, and the second part, which I think is very important, is the landscaping plan shall show the location, varieties, and initial caliber of all trees proposed for planting, which you talked about, okay? And further, show the proposed landscaping for all other areas where landscaping is required by the rules and regulations. And then next, the landscaping plan shall show the proposed landscaping for all detention basins, detention ponds, drainage swales, rain garden, bio-vegetated swales, and other pervious surface areas contributing to the stormwater management system. So there's a lot here that.
Yeah,
we
and that's what we
definitely
were
get away.
intending to
So what
bring
I'm
in.
saying is, I think the
Yeah.
applicant should look at what specific.
I'll get more specific.
That's
quite
what I
fine.
think we should do
Yeah.
this on, Bob, is that greater
Yep.
specificity,
Yep.
and then,
And of course, this is unique in the respect that most of the road is already roughed in. So we actually can go out there and get a pretty good idea of what can be saved. So I'll have Stan do a little better job of identifying what can be saved for you guys. And when we do another site walk with the definitive, you know, you'll be able to look at that. I'll get you more specificity. The striping, the road
yeah, let's
striping.
talk about that. What's that
I mean,
about?
That's easy.
it's fairly easy, and again, it's not something that makes an enormous amount of difference. To me, a road out there should resemble roads in the neighborhood, which do not look terribly urban. And so it should look like a country lane without a line down the middle of it, without lines on either side. That's my personal preference. If the board would prefer that this look like a standard subdivision road with lines in the middle and on either side, we'll provide the striping. Doesn't make an enormous amount of difference. It's very aesthetic.
Thoughts?
I have one issue here only, and it's strictly the, I think we have a situation on our own here that we duplicated something, okay?
Yeah.
This is listed as a separate item in the long list of A to P at the beginning, yet it falls elsewhere. It falls in what's called a detailed design plan with a
Right.
lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
So on the detailed design plan, the very last thing says to identify any street signage and street striping. So it will fall on the definitive plan anyway that they identify it.
Yeah.
Then we'll choose whether we want it or not in
Yeah.
this location. So
How does the board generally feel about that, though? You don't get that many subdivisions.
no, but
I usually.
I think the important part of this is the word signage. That's right.
Oh,
Yeah, I
signage
defer-
is fine.
Yeah, typically,
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I defer to the public safety officers in town. It's
Yeah,
a public
okay.
safety issue more than aesthetic issue.
Yeah.
And I defer to their judgment on, but that's me personally, I
Yeah.
can't speak for the entire board.
And then,
So where are we, so where are we on that? Do you- so
that's fine,
We're good, we got a sense of where we
we're
are?
good. I've got
Okay,
a
good.
sense of that.
So it seems like we're making some
And
progress.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
as
please.
Mr. Archambault notes in his presentation that also deferring to the DPW
Right.
recommendations. And where do we fall? I've managed over 62 communities where we put the fog lines in because people were going off the roads.
Okay.
But that's just,
Yeah.
but that was a request of the people
Yeah.
who live there.
Yeah,
Because the street lighting was chosen to be a different way. So I think it's kind of getting feeling for how wide the roads are and where they're going to be.
exactly.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense
yep,
to me.
it does.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And then the last,
This,
I'll just
Nathan,
say-
I'm
please.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm inclined, especially as we talk about the safety and we talk about the traffic study, and we point to Wright Road and probably Snake Hill too, that are country roads,
Yep.
that we should not continue that that method. And so I would be more inclined to having, at the very least, a center.
That's interesting.
And
That's
I would
interesting.
say also that the fact that two sides of, parts of the loop of the road are going to be underneath the easement too, and that has to be visually negotiated for clarity and safety.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still some things there.
No, and again, thank you. I've never had anybody say that, ever. 42 years, you're the first.
That's
Now,
me. Hears it all the time.
That's why I'm here.
this last one baffles me because
What,
the Tesla did, because I would think if I were a developer, I'd want to do that for my own good to see what the heck's going on. So it could, yeah, I'd like to hear from you. What are you thinking with the Tesla?
What I believe, and again, perhaps we want to have this conversation when Stan's here, because I'm not the one to discuss this. What I understand is that test hole information is being provided for all of the drainage, portions of the drainage system. I believe your regulation requires periodic test hole information for the entire length of the road. I believe that actually was already done 15 years ago, and that's why the road was located where it's located. So what we were suggesting is rather than duplicate testing that was done 15 years ago in a location where the road has already been roughed in and the utilities have already been installed, we would instead give you new information on all of the areas where drainage is, because things can change.
So new information where there's drainage, and would we have access to the old information that was done 20 years ago for the remainder?
Yeah, I believe you have it in your files.
Comments? Reflections?
It's basically,
Go
it's
ahead.
basically the same exact thing. Just go to the section.
Yeah,
And don't try to waive the whole section
Yeah.
F.
waive
Look
specifics,
at the piece that you need to
and that
waive.
would be
'cause
fine.
It basically talks about, in this particular case, in general, it even talks about septic, which
Yeah,
doesn't apply.
yeah, which does not.
I'm inclined to waive the requirement to do test holes down the middle of the street because I think it's already done.
Yeah,
The road is compacted and, it's
Yeah.
not gonna turn.
The
we're not gonna
utilities are
change
there.
that.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
It's usually based on the construction capacity for the road to handle the traffic and
If
whatnot.
anything, it's gonna become more pervious.
It's probably more compacted.
Right, of
And
course.
then, so just look at that
More
and
I shall.
only ask for what you need to waive.
Yep.
Okay, good.
So that's wonderful. The only other thing I'd love to talk about, but we can talk about it next time, is streetlights again, because I'm still unclear about that. But, and again, it's very different. Universally, nobody ever wants streetlights in
Yeah,
Groton.
some research.
So
I've
I would
actually-
be very interested to see how
Wow,
different it is here.
I respect your experience, but even
Yeah.
my 4 short years on this board, I know that's not true. I know we've received comments about streetlights. I know
Here,
that-
yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
here.
saying, in
Okay.
Groton, nobody wants them.
We're not
So,
Groton.
and you're clearly not Groton. I've had my tenants over on Groton School Road
That could be
ask
our
me to
motto.
put them in.
Air,
So-
not run.
Well, if we do them, we're
Is that
gonna
for
do them
marketing?
right, because I read a recent article that was in the Atlantic, summarizing research
Yeah.
about white light and blue light streetlights on wildlife,
Yeah.
which is fairly detrimental to wildlife.
Yeah.
So maybe,
Yeah, I
we're gonna do
personally
it-
hate them, but
We're gonna do
again,
it right,
the, whatever you guys want, we'll bring.
we'll see.
A moment of levity.
All right.
Wildlife as in animals or wildlife as in partying? And yes, the white
No,
lights
no,
cut
no,
down
perhaps
partying.
both.
Animals.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank
Parties
you,
don't
Ms.
want lights
I'm
either,
sorry.
like that.
So just for the public at large, the thing about the streetlights is tricky is that you're juggling, I think, at least 3 different things. One is safety. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing. And you have to, that is a necessity. So the question now is there a safety issue? The other 2 things are the environmental impact, because no, we don't want to add to the light pollution. No, we don't want to compromise the environment and the nature that's there. And the third is aesthetics. You know, so that's why this is a discussion. It's like, how do we arrive at something that's
So whatever
appropriate?
you'd like is fine by us.
And again, public safety gets to weigh in on this one.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I said
Yeah.
safety, of
Yeah.
course, is the number 1 of those 3 considerations.
Just so the public understands, it's not purely under our.
Correct.
Okay.
So when would you actually like to see us again? Realistically, when do you think you?
Oh, that we should talk about.
We have a meeting on the 23rd, and I would anticipate that could be the first meeting where we have Niche actually in this room with all of us, the traffic consultant.
Yeah.
So I think that will be one of the focuses of that meeting.
Okay, but again, is that something, I mean, to me,
Yeah,
you don't need to see us
No.
again until you actually have a report.
I would think so.
So when would
Okay.
you like that to be?
You were asking us for when you would like our extension to go until?
No,
Yeah,
just-
yeah, when do you want to see us
I
again?
think.
I mean, as happy as I am
I
to
think-
come every 2 weeks, I'm
Well,
sure you got better things to
basically,
do.
the last extension you gave, or the first one, was till the end of August. I think
Yeah.
until the end of September
Yeah,
would
that
be
makes
great.
sense to me.
We may be able to act on it sooner, but,
Yeah.
we
Can
don't
we
know.
get that?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So
so what
that
does it
makes
require? A
sense
letter
to
from
me.
you saying
Yes.
Yeah.
you'll extend,
Yeah.
and you'll get that to Mark?
At
Yeah.
least the end of September.
At least till the end of September.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and then,
I would hope that we can
Yep.
wrap it up in December for the preliminary.
Yes.
then on that
Yeah.
same subject, I doubt you will have a report from Niche by September 8th. So I would
Probably
think you
not.
would want to see us at your second meeting in September.
At the
Amen.
earliest,
Yes.
probably.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
We said something else.
Yep, let me, Ken first and Julie. Ken?
Were you talking about the schedule, Julie? I was gonna go back to street lighting, that's what I was.
Yeah, no, I have a question about this. Just
Schedule, so Julie, you go
if,
first.
if we're getting, first of all, just for our board to know, I will not be at the 23rd, so I will not be at the next meeting, just in case that anyone else won't be. But if we're getting the Conservation Commission's report, does Mr. Collins need to be here for that discussion on September 8th?
We should be here at every meeting, just in case
So,
something comes up.
well,
Yeah, so is that when you'd be getting that report?
we don't know.
Thank you.
Well,
for
That was
bringing
your
know
that
question,
up.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hear you.
When do you want to see me again?
What occurs this Thursday at their Conservation Commission meeting will help to determine when they will be able to get us
Yeah.
their recommendation.
Chances are they'll have it by the 23rd.
Okay, so
See, I
should
have a hard
Mr.
time
Collins,
believing that. You
should
think
Mr.
that?
Collins
almost
be
done.
here at the 23rd?
Yes.
Okay, that's his question,
He
isn't
should-
it?
Every meeting he
Well,
should be.
He would like you
He's
here
left.
on the 23rd.
All
I
right,
will
which
not
I'm
be
more
here.
than happy to come, but to me, it would make sense that the next time you see me is September 8th,
Yeah,
because
we're not,
by that
we're not
point,
making any hard and fast decisions on the 23rd, except to work with the traffic consultant.
Exactly.
What if they give us the conservation, their opinion on the conservation analysis, and we want to decide that night if we agree, disagree, or want to make a
Well,
amendment?
then, yeah, since we don't know, it may behoove, well,
Yes.
pay attention to what
Watch
happens
for
with
the
this
agenda.
Thursday's Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
Thursday's Conservation Commission meeting will
That will
probably
set-
give us some direction.
That will set,
But-
the sense of
We
things.
have to continue it no matter what to the next
Yes,
meeting.
oh, yes.
We do.
Yes, yes.
We never actually looked at this one, but that's okay.
So moved.
we set on the meeting? Okay, I just want to go back to the lighting.
Gee, I'm not clear on the meetings at all, so
Okay.
when do you want to see me again?
Next
What we're
Do you
saying
want
is
me to come
definitely
on
want
the
to see you on the
23rd?
8th, but if you don't, the thing about the 23rd is that we can't we don't know exactly when some stuff is going to come in.
That's
So
why I thought the
that-
8th makes more sense.
Well, but that's the thing, if by some miracle, somehow the consultant for the conservation gets that in, no, that can't happen. You don't need, can it?
Absolutely, the guy's gonna be finished this week.
No, he's not.
But the commission doesn't meet until the 26th, which is 2
Exactly,
days after
so I don't
us.
think,
Oh.
yeah, that's the issue.
So
Ken.
we have a Tuesday
That's
meeting, they have a
right.
Thursday meeting.
So it's not gonna
we
happen.
can't act on
Well, that's
anything they
good.
do
So even
before
if-
they give it to us.
Exactly.
Right.
So
The
it would
cart
make
can't be
sense
before
to
the
me,
horse.
September 8th.
Yes.
I think it would make sense
Okay.
for you, yes. And was there something else, Ken?
Well, let's settle on that for everybody here first. We done on that? September 8th is good from Mr. Collins? Okay. I want to go back to the lighting. This, for the board's thought and for your thought, this
Yeah.
could be a situation where we have to bring in somebody we typically would bring in on a site plan review, a lighting consultant.
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is because I've been over to the project you brought,
Yeah.
and I see how you did it over there. Every single lot has a lamp post in their front yard.
Yep.
And everyone's lighting on the front of the house is lit accordingly. So it's
Yeah.
easy to see that they could light their driveway or their front lawn on the edge of the road and whatnot. That's where there's homes. But we have hundreds of feet of areas here with no homes, specifically 700 feet under the power lines. So we may actually
Yeah.
have to bring a professional in this time to look, and they'll know what all about, we all know the same thing, dark sky requirements and animals and all that stuff. They'll have take a closer
Sure.
look, because I'm almost thinking of it in segments. You have the lower segment, you have a midsection, you have an upper segment, you have
Yeah.
intersections. So the safety at intersections is more important and so forth
Yeah.
and so on. So I'm just thinking that for their own purposes, you may want to have Stan Dillis to start thinking about a lighting consultant to take a look at the thing when
Yep.
it comes back with a definitive plan.
And if I may, with the boulevard set up in the middle,
Yep.
with a long island in the middle of it,
You can light it.
there's an opportunity to light it on the sides or light
Right.
it from the center.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you'd want it in the center.
Yeah,
And
well,
so-
that's why I think.
but
you
that's-
need
And
some-
that's
a
why,
discussion,
so
right.
where I am with with lighting is, we're going to come up with some sort of well thought out hybrid on this one.
Exactly. It's gonna
That's
be-
exactly how I feel about lighting on this.
It's because of the scope of the job.
Exactly. And as you say, the different areas in the job.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And, especially in this situation, if we do go for, if potentially there's a small park involved, you may want some
You
baller
might want
lighting.
some lanterns or something.
Something
Yeah,
along the
baller
ground, you may
lights,
want something
yes.
reflecting off a flagpole.
Yep.
There could be a number of different things,
Sure.
So, might be, there's more to it than meets the eye. I know what Marion's gonna say, nobody's, but.
Well, actually, Marion had her hand up earlier. I wanted to ask, yes, come on up, Marion.
Thank you.
Yep, of course.
No, that's all right. Thank you. So I would like to go back to landscaping.
Okay.
And so I'm concerned about landscaping. I'm concerned that we're in a serious drought. We're in a period of climate change, which is so uncertain. And we know that in the town of Groton now that people are, they're so short of water that people have been advised not to use water to water the lawns now.
Oh, that's,
And so I'm feeling that that's important for us in Ayer and everywhere to take these concerns into serious consideration and to not plant lawns and to plant instead to use plantings that do not require irrigation or watering, and that we focus on planting plants that are native to this area, pollinators, and that we also not use pesticides and herbicides which are so destructive to the environment. So this could be a model for the town of Ayer.
Thank you, Marion.
Yep.
Anything else on this? Okay, I think we'll,
We'll continue it
I
tonight.
agree with the water conservation and not using
Oh, yeah, water.
pesticides and herbicides on lawns, but is that, can you legislate that?
No.
No, we can't.
No, but,
Not yet.
Yeah,
but certainly in the common areas and.
in the common areas.
In the
Yeah.
common
Doesn't hurt to
areas,
talk
we
about
could,
it.
we
Yeah.
could have drought-resistant landscaping, for sure.
Yeah, and actually, we wouldn't be proposing lawn for any of the common areas. It would be
Dear God.
woodland vegetation.
Thank goodness.
And
Yeah.
we can certainly educate the public who would live up there about water conservation
Yeah.
and
But
laws.
why not design the houses without lawns?
They
Yeah.
won't sell. They won't sell.
You're making an assumption.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
All right.
they won't.
Thank you very much.
But thank you.
Continue to the August 23rd meeting.
Yes, well, do I need a motion to continue?
Yeah.
And
for that?
forgive me,
Yeah.
before you continue,
Yeah.
would you want Stan or perhaps somebody from Vanessa Associates at that meeting on the 23rd?
Actually, Vanessa, that would be good. 'cause, yeah,
Okay, let me
okay.
see what I can do.
You're gonna have two?
Traffic.
Two traffic
engineers
engineers in the
same
room?
Yeah, we've done it before.
Fireworks.
Nothing will get done. Excuse me.
Jeff, you can bring popcorn.
Yeah,
Enjoy the show.
I'll enjoy it.
Exactly.
Move to continue.
So moved.
The general public
Seconded.
meeting for Stratton Hill Preliminary
Something.
Any
Subdivision
discussion?
To the next meeting.
I second it.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. We'll continue
Thank
this
you
to the
so
23rd.
much.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
see
Thank
you all soon.
Thank you, everyone who showed up
Thank
to
you.
talk or listen. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Oh.
So I have
Okay, planner update. I just have a few
Yes,
things.
lay it on us, my friend.
I thought we had a good site visit to Cataldo.
Very-
It was.
I thanked him for that.
Hard. It
Um,
was really good.
I will have more of an update on the status of the various subdivisions and other projects at the August 23rd meeting, since I have to talk to Charlie. He's been busy. But just as Alan wanted to brief everybody about minor zoning amendments to ponder over the next few weeks, I don't want a decision on this, but you may recall, and this is just something to think about. I have it up on Mr. Mapper. Here's the town's transfer station, former landfill. Here are the solar arrays up there. This is around Harvard Road, of course. This lot here, which was operated by Burnham Trekking, I believe it's owned by
It's okay.
Mr. Flagg, I think.
No, Mrs.
No.
Burnham.
Oh,
This is owned by Burnham.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Burnham's on.
Well, it's on the market. One complicating issue is that it's zoned residential A1, I believe.
A1.
Yep, it's
Yep.
A1.
It's A1. But everything that people want to do on this lot is of a commercial, industrial, or trucking nature, which is not allowed in residential.
Yeah,
So
to be
several people have approached me. It's like, would you mention this to the planning board? Is it possible for the town to rezone this property to either general business or light industrial so that the uses that would most likely be compatible with this lot next to the transfer station, can occur without a variance? 'Cause,
May I ask a favor, Mark? Can you
Yes.
scroll down, please? Because I believe
Going to the north?
no, in the white in the information box.
oh,
No, don't.
scroll
Right
down.
there.
in the-
Scroll down. Yep. Go up.
The value?
No, okay, go down a little bit more, please. Stop right there.
Yep.
So last sale, typically what happens when you have a piece of property like this was zoned as A1 after it was being used for a trucking company. It has transacted since then. That last sale date of February 29th, 2016, they got it done on a leap year day. Look at that. For $1. That was an arm's length transaction or something. Anyway, bottom line is this is a pre-existing non-conforming use of a property.
Yep.
Now, I talked to our MVP a while back about this piece of property, and it is our understanding that there are no services from the town to that lot. There's no water and there's no sewer. It ends short of water. Am I misquoting?
You're not misquoting at all.
So we have a piece of property here that if it was going to be an A1 piece of property, I'm not arguing either side of the case, guys.
Right.
Somebody's going to have to put in utilities. It has electricity, we know that. So, with that being said, that an A1 lot is 40,000 square foot. What's the size of this lot? It's larger than that.
It's, exactly, well, close to exactly 4.75.
Yeah, it's like,
Almost 5
so
acres.
it's a fairly large lot. It also is the neighbor to our transfer station. So if there was a piece of property that could be up for consideration for rezoning,
This would be it.
think about it, guys.
And below,
Yeah.
south of it is.
Well, this is
Ayer
a
property.
conservation land.
Yeah.
That's all conservation area.
Right, yeah.
I understand that, but on the other side of it, are, it's a transfer
It's
station.
not an ideal location for residents.
Right.
I can't say what I want to say because it's
Oh,
small.
do you want me to
So,
get rid of the box?
Never mind.
See
Yeah.
better?
so I
There's
just,
a lot of things going on in that lot that
Yeah, no kidding.
typically may not be compliant with everything that we'd like to see on a lot,
Okay.
okay? Not the least of which is, we're not supposed to park things like right on the lot line.
Right.
The whole back of the lot has been filled over the years,
Ah.
sporadically, just creating more land. Who knows what hazardous waste is under the land from trucks spilling, leaking and stuff like that.
And the stuff that's dumped here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you can see it from the
All
trail.
junk.
You can see it from the trail.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, this would require a lot of thought
Okay.
to make
Well,
that.
if we could think
endorse-
about it,
For us
I-
to endorse the change would take a lot of thought. for
Okay.
Now, what we learned months ago is the owner can make an
We'd have to-
can make an
Right,
application.
yes, they can make, yeah, it could be, right,
Just like Teddy
citizen
Maxson.
petition, just
Right.
like Maxson.
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't tell anybody we would, or, I just said I would bring it to the board's attention that almost every week I'm getting an email or a call about this now.
Yeah.
What do you know about this lot? What can I do on it? Yeah, I don't know. So,
No, and-
well, let's think about it.
and as I said, I'm sorry, I gave you that information so you have it, not to
Yeah.
argue either
Right,
side
oh, yeah.
of this.
Yep. Well, we can think about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, second thing I have is, I probably won't have a big list of zoning changes for the town meeting because things are so busy with other things. But one thing I would like to take care of is, in the parking section, if you could look at section 914B, write that down, 914B. At the very end, this is when people want to get a special permit to locate all or some of the required parking off-site in the downtown especially. They require, a special permit from the planning board to do that. And it says at the very end, and recorded with the property deed. Everybody I've talked to said that's a big problem. That's not how you do things. And, Alan, gets upset when he sees that. So I think better language might be and recorded with a long-term lease agreement or something like that. Get rid of that word property deed. Those two words at the end. Substitute something else. That would make potentially the provision of off-site parking easier.
So, may I?
Yes.
And having had the experience with this, there's a building I managed in Watertown, in Newton Corner, which is in Watertown, that is recorded in land court, not in the registry of deeds. There's two recording things.
Yeah.
Land court, everything you record in land court has to be approved by a judge or a judge's helper. I forget the names of the people. But so when you walk into land court and you say, I have a parking space that I have to deed, they have a hard time with that because the law in Massachusetts is not handling